Coffee on a Tuesday in Vlog 10. We made it! Okay, everybody, let's play. What the fuck is going on in Europe? Okay, so sovereign debt, also known as government debt, is money or credit owed by a central government. Governments issue bonds, also known as security. Basically, it's like me handing you a piece of paper and saying, I want to borrow $1 million from you, and I'll pay it back in 2 years. Let's take a look at you. Okay, well-dressed, well-spoken, good-looking. Okay, I'll do it. I'll give you $1 million, but only if you pay me back a little bit extra in return. But I thought we were friends. There are no friends in finance! Okay, how much do you want? I want my million back plus 3%. Okay, where do I sign? Right here. Governments do the same thing. They issue sovereign bonds and accrue sovereign debt. Such bonds are usually referred to as risk-free bonds, because if a government can't pay, all they have to do is raise taxes and print more money. Risk-free because governments never ever default on their debt. It's practically unheard of that a government could ever get close to. You hold on, I'll get to you. First, let's wind back the clocks. On February 7th, 1992, presidents and prime ministers from 12 different European countries assembled in Maastricht, Netherlands, to sign the Maastricht Treaty. Maastricht! It was the document that led to the creation of the European Union and the implementation of a single currency called the euro. To join the EU, countries needed to meet strict criteria like no budget deficits of more than 3% of GDP, no debt ratios of more than 60% of GDP, and interest rates on sovereign bonds had to stay within 2% of the EU average. Remember those numbers. On January 1st, 1999, the euro was introduced in non-physical form. Individual currencies like the German mark or the Greek drachma were locked at fixed rates against each other, making them insignificant subdivisions of the euro they had to get rid of. 3 years later, in 2002, the notes and coins of the euro were printed and distributed, and countries started the process of exchanging all their money for euro. But why did they do it? Why was the euro created? Well, you see, most of the trade in Europe is among its own countries. By removing exchange rate risks, cutting the cost of transactions, and encouraging firms to trade across international borders, the euro made the eurozone into an area of monetary stability. Today, the euro is the second most traded currency in the world, behind the dollar. Yeah! Through renewed cooperation, Europe sought not only to ensure economic stability, but international peace. And peace they got. But
I thought my jokes were bad.
In Greece, where civilization itself was born, things had been going awry for quite some time. After the switch to the euro, the traditionally strong Greek public sector saw wages rise to outstanding levels. Not to mention that the retirement age in Greece was very low and its benefits very generous. But these things aren't enough to sink a whole country. It was ultimately tax evasion which did the trick.
The coastal suburb of Kavouri is home to Athens' elite. An apartment here costs more than €1 million. But despite the obvious signs of wealth, officially only 16,000 Greeks declared an income of more than €100,000 on their taxes last year.
When people and businesses don't pay their taxes, it limits revenue, what the country takes in. When the money ran out, Athens turned to other European banks for loans. Soon they owed billions of euro and the debt kept going up. But how did Greece acquire so much debt when the guidelines of the European Union were supposed to keep debts reined in?
I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. It's gone.
In 2010, it was discovered that Greece had paid banks like Goldman Sachs hundreds of millions of euro in fees for arranging transactions that would hide the actual level of borrowing. This allowed them to keep spending and accrue more debt. Upon the inauguration of George Papandreou in 2009, the Greek government revealed that its finances were far worse than anyone expected. Their budget deficit was 12.7%, 4 times more than the Eurozone's limit. The public debt was estimated at $329 billion, 144% of GDP. In April of 2010, Standard & Poor's decreased Greece's debt rating to the upper levels of junk status. Junk status, bitch! Take a look at what happened to the interest rates of 2-year bonds. Holy shit. Let's go back to that earlier conversation. But I thought we were friends.
There are no friends in finance!
Well, with the EU, that's not exactly the case. By adopting the euro, the countries involved basically agreed that they would all be economic friends. And when the drunken, indulgent little brother passes out in the gutter in the wrong part of town, the responsible older brother has to see that he gets home safe. In times of economic emergency, countries can usually just print more money and accept the inflation and devalued currency that comes along with it. But the countries in the EU gave up the right to print their own money, so now they have to depend on one another. Greece is a relatively small country in the scheme of things, a little economy compared to Germany. But when Greece owes money it can't pay to Portugal, and Portugal owes money it can't pay to Spain, and Spain owes money it can't pay to Germany, then a problem arises. It's the domino effect people fear. Ripples through the EU that can hurt comparatively stable countries like France and Germany and even the United States. So Greece needs help. To save the euro, the other countries have ultimately decided to bail out Greece on 50 cents of every dollar that it owes.
By the way, the suit, it wasn't cheap. You ought to know, you bought it.
This in exchange for internal reform in the way of harsh austerity measures. No more early retirement, reduced pay for public workers, large-scale cuts to social programs, higher taxes, and a staggered repayment of the reduced debt. A lot of people in Greece think the austerity measures are too harsh, and so they've incited protests which continue to this day. But the problem with the European debt crisis is that Greece isn't the only country in trouble.
How much does Ireland owe?
865 billion.
Correct. How much do Spain and Italy owe?
$1 trillion each.
Correct. Who to?
Mainly France, Britain and Germany.
Correct. And how are Germany, France and Britain going, Roger?
Well, they're struggling a bit, aren't they?
Correct. Why?
Because they've lent all these vast amounts of money to other European economies that can't possibly pay them back.
Correct. So what are they going to do?
They're going to have to bail them out.
Correct. Where are they getting the money to do that, Roger?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that one.
How much does Portugal owe?
Hang on a minute. What was the answer to that earlier question?
Just keep answering the questions, Roger.
So what is the long-term solution? Most of the bailout money is coming from the European Financial Stability Facility. Some want to make the EFSF a permanent fixture in the EU for whenever a country is in need. Some have suggested that the weak countries leave the Eurozone. Others that the Eurozone should be dismantled completely. Whatever the solution, whatever money is going to be put on the table, it's all going to be conditional on serious structural reform within the Eurozone. You hate to see a few bad seeds ruin the party for everybody.
If we don't deal with this now, soon, little
Germany
here won't be able to get a nickel for his grandma.
Enough from the clown!
Let's not blow this out of proportion.
You think you could steal from us and just walk away?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. That's another edition of What the Fuck is Going On in Europe.